Welcome to the Midweek Breakdown. I am your host, the AntMan. The man in the center is Brandon Stevens. On the far end, Dalton Miller. Their podcast has now become our podcast, which we hope will become your podcast each and every week right here. A day late on this one, but still plenty of relevant material to cover with you guys. Can you believe that there are only two regular season games left in the 2024 season? Does it feel like it flew by to you?
I'm ready for it to be over.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I knew that was coming.
As an OU fan, I am okay with having only 2 weeks left. But no, I am with you. It does feel like it's flown by, and we're already in week 3 of the college football playoff stuff. So I mean, it's just it has flown by for sure. And there's been a lot of parity and a lot of interesting stuff happen so far. So it really does make it more interesting, even outside of my, crimson glasses and my OU heart. It has still kept my interest, which says something, because there's been years past where I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. 2 regular season games left, and then the start of a brand new 12-team playoff, one that's starting with as much controversy as the BCS had when it ended. If you really just boil it down, we're going to get to that coming up here in just a bit. We're going to go over this week's rankings here shortly and see how yours stack up against the official top 12. But first, one element that is new this year is the bye for 4 conference champions. That's the reward if you win your conference. But big question is, what if you're good enough to get in already and you have a place in the playoffs before you play that championship game, but you end up losing that championship game? Do you also lose that ranking? Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin had some thoughts after last week's game talking about this.
I've talked to other coaches, so I'll just kind of give you the feeling from some other coaches that they don't want to be in it. The risk to get a bye. The reward to get a bye versus the risk to get knocked out completely. I mean, that's a really big risk, just to get a bye. So I think it's ended up being a very unique situation of all, postseason sports, the way that system's set up there, and how you could go to that and get knocked out, and if you don't go, you're in.
Brandon, let's say your team is ranked high enough to be in the playoffs. So you got the conference championship. You're that good, but you lose that conference championship. What happens?
I mean, this is somewhere I thought we would never go. This never really crossed my mind once we got into the 12-team playoff. I'm kind of with Lane Kiffin. I don't feel like, unless you're on the bubble playing in a conference championship, which I kind of feel like maybe ACC teams and maybe Big 12 teams will be on the bubble playing in that championship. Unless you're just on the bubble of that top 12, I don't necessarily feel like there's a plus side in it for you. On the flip side, if both of your teams that are playing in your conference championship are alive and well in the 12-team playoff, I do feel like it definitely is a detriment to the team that loses that game. And I don't feel like that's fair, because if they weren't in that and they didn't have that extra game to lose, right, then they would probably be in. So I totally agree with Lane Kiffin on what he's saying here, and feel like, for a team that has that's in a really strong conference, I think playing in the conference championship can be a detriment, and will show to be a detriment in this until it expands even further past 12.
Do you think it'll do that?
I do. I think in the next, I'd be surprised in the next 3 or 4 seasons if it didn't move to 16.
Yeah. I can see that too.
I think it will eventually move bigger than 12. We never thought we would get a playoff, and then we got a 14 playoff, and we thought it was great. And then the 5th team got pissed every year. And then now we have a 12-team playoff, and the 13th and 14th team are going to get pissed every season. You're never going to make anybody happy unless you just say, okay, every team gets in the playoff. We're going to have 300 and 14 teams, however many are in
Exactly.
D1 football, play in this 19-week playoff to get to a championship, and then we're playing through July. And I mean, there's always going to be someone that's pissed.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a detriment for two teams that are already in the playoff, because there's a really good chance that the one that loses and ends up with that one extra loss gets left out.
Dalton, I want to come to you. Wait to this thought of not wanting to play in the conference championship game. How are you feeling about it?
Man, let me play the opposite side to that. Look at the SEC. There's a chance where at this point, it's as long as Texas and Texas A&M both win this week, one of those two teams will be only a one-loss team in that conference, playing in the title game, right? So then everybody else is going to have two losses. So do you really leave it up to chance and leave it up to the committee to decide between these 6 teams who are the other 3 worthy of getting in? Or do you want a shot at playing in the title game to say, I still control my destiny. I win the title game, I'm automatically in with a bye. I think that I think I understand what Lane Kiffin's saying, and it's justifiable 100%. But as a competitor, do you really want to leave it up to chance? Don't you want to be in that title game to prove not only are you the best team in this conference, but now you get a bye, you get to watch and see what happens and how things play out. So I think that there's definitely two sides to this argument, and I don't think that Lane Kiffin would be saying this if he didn't have 2 losses right now and he was running the table in the SEC. So there's definitely two sides. It's also different in the SEC, I'll say, even than in the Big Ten and in the Big 12 and the ACC, because in the Big 12 and the ACC, you're 100% saying, I want to be in the conference championship game because I'm not getting into the tournament or into the playoff right now if I'm not in that conference championship game. There's no
ACC
there's no
in
shot.
the Big 12.
Yeah. I might have said Big 10. I meant to say Big 12. But Big 10 is honestly, when you look at strength of schedule, it's the same way. Like, there's a lot. The SEC, in my opinion, is the only one that has that argument to sit here and say, I'll let you two battle it out in the championship game. I'm going to hang tight because I feel like our fate is there. We're going to the playoff if we're not in the championship game because we've got the resume, the schedule, all those things. There's a lot of teams that can't say that.
Well, there's got to be some validity, though, to where you rank before that championship game. Because, I mean, for the people who are not in it that are ranked, they just stay where they are, regardless of really what happens in that. For the most part, it does for those that don't make it. It should for you, too, in some sense. So how do you balance that out? And because Lane's in this position right now is really the reason it's even being brought up, don't you think?
Probably so. And I also want to point out, what if there's an upset in a conference championship game? Mm-hmm. Now you're really out of it. I mean, you expect Miami to win the ACC. What if SMU or Clemson comes in and upsets them?
Well,
and now it's like, does the committee still believe that Miami's a playoff team, even though they're one-loss team? And I just think that there's too much chance there to sit here and actually say, I don't want to be in the championship game. Like, I'm with you. I get it. Like, you want to be in the playoff rather than losing the championship game and not go. But
which is a weird attitude.
Well, we also, he's coming from the SEC, who I really think has a good chance of getting 5 teams in.
100%.
And so he's sitting there thinking, I'd much rather be 3, 4, or 5 in the SEC that gets in than have to take a chance, especially at another loss. If it's not a Texas loss or it's not a Texas A&M loss that gives them the second loss. I think that's the only time that a losing conference champion is going to get in.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
If it's just a one-loss team.
Okay, that was going to be my question, though. I think Texas over A&M. So say Texas beats A&M. That's Texas's only ranked win of the season.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then if they lose in the conference championship game, do they still get in? I think Texas will, for bias reasons. I don't think A&M
because
will.
The logo on the helmet.
Bingo.
I don't think A&M will. I think that A&M is the team that if they beat Texas and make it to the championship game, they have to win the championship game, in my opinion.
It's something we talked about with Texas being, last week on the show, Texas being ranked so high without any quality wins as far as ranked opponents, they're guaranteed, no matter what happens really from here to the end of the season, that they are going to be in the playoffs regardless. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I don't think they are.
Yeah, I don't think
regardless is the wrong
if
attitude.
they were to slip up and lose this week,
and they very well
Again,
could,
and then they
Kentucky.
lose
Kentucky,
and then they lose, in the SEC championship game, that gives them 3 losses in conference. They're not getting in.
Well, the problem is,
So I don't think you can say
lose
regardless,
to Kentucky, they're not in the championship game.
Well, it ranked at number 2. How far are they going to push them down?
But if Texas loses this week and still beats A&M, they're not in the championship game because of tiebreaker. They will not have the wins
and then they just
needed to win the tiebreaker. Right.
Which would probably still be in the top 12.
Maybe top 12, but we learned from the rankings, the way the college football committee is doing it, just because you're in the top 12 does not solidify your spot in the playoff. So they may end in the top 12, but that does not mean they're going to the playoff because you don't know who's going to win the conference title games.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's given the best shot to stay there, even with another loss, it's them being ranked as high as they are right now.
In my opinion, their loss has to come in the championship game, though. They can't lose. They can't lose this week because of the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
A
big one.
I agree with that. As long as we're talking about the SEC, if we're talking about everybody, Oregon can lose. I think in the Big Ten championship game and still get in.
Oregon's in. Ohio State's in.
Yeah, no matter.
Yep.
Either one of those teams lose in the Big Ten championship game, they're in. It's not a question. But the SEC is a completely different monster.
Yeah.
And that's why Lane Kiffin said what he did. Again,
Absolutely.
There's just too much chance. There's too much chance. Like, you're not saying that if you're a 1-loss team or you're undefeated right now with a chance to win the conference.
Yep.
Well, this one's going to make a difference. Let's move over to a big game this Saturday. Ohio State Buckeyes taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. Ohio State 9-1 and ranked at number 2. Indiana undefeated and ranked at number 5. Clearly, this regular season game is going to have some impact on the losers' chances of making it to the playoffs and vying for the national championship. Dalton, Ohio State shut out Purdue. Barely squeaked out one against Nebraska, schooled Northwestern last week, and their only loss came against Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks, the number 1 team in the nation. This game, as much about the coaches on the sidelines as the players on the field. Can Ryan Day put enough together to give Cignetti his first L of the season? What are you thinking, man?
I think so. And the reason being, Indiana's wins, every single one of them have come over a non-ranked team. He's yet to beat a top 25 team. Ohio State has one top 25 win. They had a chance to beat Oregon, who we're saying right now is the number 1 team in college football. And when you look at this spread, a 13-point spread, why is it? The more I've looked at things, honestly, the more I'm starting to change back to a BCS mindset as far as the polls go. And that's crazy because I never thought I would. But as I've been reading up on where these teams are at and their strength of schedule, yes, Indiana's a good football team. And they've taken care of business in the games that were put in front of them. They can't control the fact that the other teams are not doing well. And they're winning. And they need to keep winning. And that's the way to solidify your spot in the end. However, you put them up on paper right now, in my opinion, if they're saying Ohio State's 13 points favored in this game, is Indiana actually in the top 5 in college football? They have a chance to prove themselves. I don't think they will. I think that they're going to struggle just with the fact of they haven't played in this big of a game yet. And Cignetti's good. He's won a lot of football games. But Ryan Day has also only lost now to Michigan and Oregon in the Big Ten. And I don't see him losing to Indiana. So I think Ohio State's going to be able to handle business. I think that it's a game. Will Howard, the way he's led this team just from the quarterback position as that point guard position, he's going to be poised. He's going to be composed. He's going to understand that, yes, it's a top 5 game. It's a top 5 matchup, but I don't know. I'm not a college football fan that hates that this is an 11 o'clock kickoff because of Big Noon. So it's like, I don't think that there's as much hype around what this game would actually be if it was a 6:30 night game where the atmosphere changes. And that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but
no, a lot of people feel that way. Yeah.
I think that this game just favors Ohio State in many ways, and it doesn't mean Indiana's not a good football team, but I think that after this week, you have to rethink, is Indiana really a top 5 team in college football?
There's some guys, Blaine and Company, or not Blaine, Crane and Company. Blaine Crane used to be a quarterback at Michigan, and he said right now, this is after, I think it was last week, so the second week of the playoff, the new playoff, kind of how things would shake up. He said, I hate to say this right now, I miss the BCS. That was just weird to hear, and to hear you say you have that mindset is a little odd too. Brandon Cignati just signed a new deal for some pretty serious cheddar. He says, I win. Google me. Will this team's play this week match the confidence of their coach, you think?
I mean, I'm kind of with Dalton on this. I mean, they haven't played anybody, and I know we've all had them in the top 5, to 7 this year because they do keep winning. They can't help their schedule. They're beating the teams that are put in front of them. Unfortunately for them, they've had teams put in front of them that just aren't real good teams. Right. So a lot of the games they've played, they've won by a good amount. I mean, they're putting up a lot of points and they're not giving up a lot of points. I mean, Michigan last week was 2 weeks ago, I guess, was the closest game they've had in a while. They won that one 20-15, but they beat Michigan State 47-10. They beat Washington 31-17. They beat Nebraska 56-7. I mean, so they've had all these games where they've been winning by a large margin. I think Coach Cignetti might be cashing checks that his bank account can't cover whenever he starts.
Version. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, whenever did you like that?
Yeah,
you're welcome, Mom.
Exactly what you're thinking of too.
So I think we're going to find out. I'm not confident in saying that I think Ohio State's going to come in and run away with this game, because we have seen years in previous college football seasons where a team like an Indiana or a Wisconsin or even a Northwestern in the Big Ten jumps up and just really makes a statement for one season, right? You can only play the teams that are put in front of you. This is by far their biggest test. Last week was a pretty decent test for them because Michigan has been playing pretty decent as of late. But, they're at Ohio State. They're in the shoe. Mm-hmm. It's going to be crazy, even though it is the 11 o'clock game that everybody
no matter what time of day. Yeah.
Yeah, even though it is 11 o'clock game that everybody in the Big Ten is kind of pissed about, that's what you get for signing the deal with Fox, you morons.
That's right.
And that's what I'm going to say.
We've been there, done that.
You sign the deal with Fox and you get screwed in that 11 o'clock time slot, because that is their primetime time slot, because they don't want to battle ESPN. It's crazy. I do have a question. You talked about Crane and Company saying, I miss the BCS. How do you guys feel about I'm just going to come out and say it like this, about the bias, this is what the polls are. I just am saying I'm voting on this team because I think they're better. Or how do you feel about that, and not having some type of formula that works everything into play like the BCS? Once we now have this 12-team playoff, would it be better, Dalton, in your opinion, to have a systematic mathematical formula that creates the top 12, even knowing that we have to put a group of 5 team in? A Notre Dame is probably going to get in if they only have none or 1 losses. Do you feel like it should go to something like that? Or is just using a poll that has definite coaches and former coaches on the team that might have some bias in them? That's one thing I heard today on another podcast that I was watching. Is that a thought process that enters your mind?
100%. I am all for going to a new system, BCS, something like that. And the reason being, we're in week 3. You already said it. We're in the top 25, week 3 of the college football playoffs rankings. Only 12 teams of the current top 25 have wins over a ranked opponent. Of those teams,
Crazy.
only 5 have more than 1 win over a ranked opponent. And the 3 teams that have 3 wins over ranked opponents are Oregon, Georgia, and Alabama. And then you look like Alabama, honestly, in my opinion, they're still a top 4 team in college football because their losses come to, yes, Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's actually decent this year. And then Tennessee, who also has ranked wins. They're in that top 12. So you've got to look at strength of schedule. You've got to look at who people are playing. And that's why I wish it was
That's what I loved
case.
about the BCS. It always factored that part of it in.
You got to look at the fact of who are these teams beating and who are they losing to. So, 100%. I'm in favor of that.
Because you got a Georgia that beats Texas on the road at Texas.
Dominates.
And then,
Right.
beats them by a bunch. And then, obviously, we know, and we've said it multiple times on this podcast, Texas's strength of schedule, although it may be better than teams in the ACC and the Big 12 and some of the teams in the Big 10, their strength of schedule as far as SEC scheduling goes has been fairly weak. You know, they have the game coming up next week against A&M, but then, you know, you have the Alabama-Georgia game. What happens, right? You have Ole Miss that then beats Georgia. You just have
honestly
all these different combinations of teams that beat these teams, and you're still putting your rankings on somebody's opinion. And it's not something that's mathematical. I would love to see the 12-team playoff go back to, and it can be a tweaked format. I don't care. I mean, they can tweak it however they want, but I would love to see it go back to a mathematical formula that finds these top 12 teams.
That's why I have Boise State in my top 12 right now, is because they have a ranked win, and their
Let's
loss
pull that up and look at it while we're
their
while we're
loss to
talking about
Oregon, who is the number 1 team in the nation, and they played them to 7 points.
Yeah, let's pull this up and look at it while we're talking about it. There's Brandon, there's Dalton's, and there's the CFP current rankings for week number 3. Let me ask you guys this: which one do you see happening sooner? Actually getting to something like an old BCS system when it comes to rankings, or getting guys with ties to the universities, especially these big ones that you continue to see up there in these top 12s, regardless of who they're playing, getting the guys who are tied to those schools out of this committee.
I mean, I don't think you're going to do that, because who wants to have somebody that's tied to Fresno State making a call for everybody in the big names of college football? I don't think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see these guys that have ties be in it, as long as it's going to continue like this. I don't know. I see a lot of arguments, and a lot of valid arguments, honestly, coming down the pike fairly soon, but I don't see it changing until maybe it expands one more time to 16, like I talked about earlier. I would love for it too, but I don't think either one of them are really going to change.
Let's go through the CFP's rankings here, and then you guys give your differences in this. We've got Oregon at number 1. I think everybody kind of has that there. Ohio State at 2, Texas at 3, Penn State at 4, Indiana at 5, Notre Dame at number 6, Alabama at number 7, Miami at number 8, Ole Miss at 9, Georgia 10, Tennessee 11, and Boise State at 12. That would mean they win their conference if it were just played today, and they would be one of those 4 with a bye week. So it kind of rearranges some of what you see here as the top 12 of what makes it into the actual playoffs. Guys, how you feeling about yours? Brandon, let's start with you. What do you got?
I mean, I got Oregon, Ohio State. Where I'm different is I still have Penn State above Texas at number 4. I mean, those are obviously flip-flopped.
3 and 4, yep.
Yeah. And then I have Alabama number 5 right now. I mean, Alabama has a really good strength of schedule. They're playing really good right now. They do have the losses. And the bad loss, I feel like, to Vanderbilt, which I know Vanderbilt is better this year, but I still, as an Alabama,
still a bad loss, right?
Yeah, as Alabama playing Vanderbilt, that should never happen. Their other loss was Georgia, right? So Tennessee. Yeah, you're right. Their other loss was Tennessee, which I have bumped down in my ranking this week. Honestly, I really wanted to put Georgia a lot higher, and here's my reasoning beside it.
What kept you from
Give me the best win, and I'll let you guys talk about this, and you guys give me the best SEC win this year against two good teams. It has to be Georgia at Texas, right? They went to Texas and dominated Texas.
Not only did they go to Texas and dominate Texas, they were across the board. It was one of those from game day. Everybody had Texas picked across the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Everybody predicted Texas was winning that game, and it was a huge upset in their mind.
I think Georgia has the best win in the SEC this year. And I mean, some people could argue and say, no, Vanderbilt beating Alabama is a better win. But okay, whatever. I'm talking about two teams that are relevant.
That are going to matter in the next few years. Exactly.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's not really relevant. I think Georgia's win over Texas is the best SEC win so far this year. Yeah. So I have Georgia down at number 7. I really could have put them up at number 4 or number 5.
Could you flip-flop Georgia and Texas?
I feel like I could. I really feel like I could. And I almost feel stupid. I almost feel stupid for sending this to you now because I have Texas higher than Georgia, but Texas only has the one loss, right? So I have Texas higher than Georgia, but Georgia beat Texas, but Georgia has 2 losses. So, I mean, it's that, does Georgia beating them head to head make up for their extra loss? I don't know. My biggest change this week is, you're welcome, Chief. I moved Notre Dame into my top 12. And I know I'm supposed to be giving my opinion on where these teams should rank. I can't help but keep Notre Dame out because they're going to be in. If they beat USC in a couple of weeks, they're going to be in. That's just how it is. And so I went ahead and did some foreshadowing, moved them up. I don't want them to be in. I think it's BS, and I'm not meaning Brandon Stevens. I think it's BS that they are allowed to do their own complete thing and be like, screw everybody else. We're Notre Dame. So for that reason, I would keep them out on my own. And I know Chief agrees with me because he would rather them be in a Power 5 conference, but they just won't do it. I think Notre Dame should be out. I think this is the actual chance. This would be the chance for the NCAA to say, look, if you're not going to play by our rules, you're not going to play in our tournament. You can play by our rules and you can be in the playoffs. Get a conference, do that. If you're not going to do that, then we're not putting you in our playoff.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it because Notre Dame brings all the views and all the money and all the eyes. And, it's all about, lining pockets. But this was their chance to do it, and they're obviously not going to do it. So that's my top 12.
BS is as clean as it's going to get, Mom. Just so you know, that's as clean
Mom,
as this conversation gets. Right,
Mom,
here.
for you, that stands for Brandon Stevens.
That's right. Exactly. Right. Dalton, let's get your rundown. How do they differ from both Brandon's and really the CFP rankings here?
Yeah, mine differs quite a bit. I mean, obviously, I got Oregon still at number 1, undefeated. Right. I think the best team in college football right now. But then I've got Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama at 2, 3, and 4. I've got Ohio State at 5, and then Tennessee following at 6, and then I've got Texas, Miami, Indiana, Penn State, and Boise State. Again, I think that Boise State is currently a top 12 team, just because their one loss is coming to Oregon, right? They played them to 7 points, so they're really good. But this is where it's like I struggle with figuring out for myself which SEC team is better than the other when they have 2 losses and they're all beating each other, and why I want that point system. Because again, Alabama and Georgia and Oregon all have 3 wins over ranked opponents, and they're the only 3 in the country right now that can say that. So to me, the SEC should round out I agree with Unc at this point. I'm in favor of them getting 5 teams in. So anyways, that's where I'm at. I think that I'm not with Unc on Notre Dame. I couldn't do that. I couldn't put them in. I don't think that they're good enough. They'll be in if they win out, and that's the tough part about it. But this is I really try to go from my opinion and not what I think the committee is going to do at this point, because I don't think the committee is, obviously they're not going to follow my rankings. They're not going to think in my mindset. But there's a lot of people out there, not necessarily point for point what my rankings are, but that do think that, all right, we've got to start looking at this as, who are teams playing? Who are they losing to? How many ranked wins do they have? Is Texas actually the 3rd best team in the country right now? Like, we've got to start having these conversations, because Texas is not the 3rd best team in the country. And if they somehow win the SEC, I really do believe they'll go down in the first round of the college football playoff. Or the second round. Sorry, their
second round. They'll have a bye. Yeah,
their first game. Which I'm almost like, dang, it'd be hilarious if you hosted a first round game in Austin and lost.
Yeah,
you get to host it. You've been the best, one of the best teams, the best SEC team in college football all year, and this is your destiny. And what was the word we used earlier? It was like guaranteed. Is that what you said? Like, they believe that they're guaranteed to get in or something like that. And so they're guaranteed, and then they lose first round. It's like, I would love that. But
so are those second round games, those bye games, are those played at a neutral site?
Yeah, those are the old BCS bowls.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So they host, and then they've got the Rose Bowl. They've got I think the Cotton Bowl's one. They've got the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl.
Well, think about that. If Texas is in it, that game's going to end up being played at the Cotton Bowl.
That's fine. Let them lose. That's fine.
In front of their home crowd. Yeah.
I mean, no home crowd team wins at Jerry World.
Right. Well,
I mean, and this is not college football,
true.
but I saw this stat today, and I thought this was hilarious. There is one team that in the year of 2024 in all of professional sports that has not won a home game, and that's the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, that you saw the buildings falling apart too.
Right.
Yeah.
But think about that though. In all of professional sports, they're
insane.
the only team that hasn't won a home game in this calendar year.
Poor season ticket holders. Go there every week hoping for. Aren't you going to a game, Dalton, soon?
I'm going to watch Baker play in Dallas on December 22nd, and I can't wait.
So they're not going to win that one either.
The funny thing is my dad is a Dallas fan. And I saw him this weekend, Unc and my dad, they were all sitting together at a game. And he told me after the game, he's like, "Hey, I bought a Tampa shirt. I'm not
did he
Dallas."
really?
I'm like, "Yes, let's go."
That's awesome. Nice. He didn't tell me that when we were sitting
That's
there.
what's good for you is you're going there to see Dallas lose.
Oh, 100%. I've got my Baker jersey ready to go.
The odds are in your favor right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that'll be good. Well,
that's awesome.
Let us know what you think about these guys' picks for for college football right now in comparison to the official rankings, and even provide your own. Chime in if you're watching this right now on YouTube. Give it a like, subscribe, and in comments drop what some of your arguments here are. Does Texas deserve to be that high? Does Notre Dame deserve to be in this thing at all? Let us know. Chime in there, and we'd love to read your responses here on the air next week. Prime time, ABC. The Crimson Tide of Alabama are traveling to Norman for Oklahoma's final home game of the season. Not only has it been a tumultuous year team-wise and in the sports realm, but this week Coach Brent Venables delivered some heartbreaking news, and that was that he announced that his wife, Julie's cancer, was back. Think about all the stuff he's dealt with already this year, and just the fan base, the way the teams playing, all the injuries, everything that's been going on, and for us to not really know all the details, and not necessarily that we should, but to know that he's also really struggling back at home as well with something here. And she had surgery to take out the tumor in her lymph nodes, and stated that she's doing amazing. And I think our buddy Blake, he really said it best. He's in one of our group chats. He said, suddenly football just doesn't mean so much. And it's so true. This was Julie's third cancer surgery, praying that this one caught it all and she gets to feeling better soon. Now, in spite of all of that, Coach really seemed to be in good spirits and optimistic about this weekend's game against the Tide. Guys, I think for many, we seldom go into a game as fans to just not lose. But with say this year's the way that this year is shaken out, that's almost the MO for these last two games of the season. Brandon, realistically, is that your vision for Oklahoma this weekend?
I mean, I just hope we don't lose by 40.
That's it then. Yeah.
I mean, I am so trying to not be Debbie Downer here, but we're not good. We're not good. We haven't faced a true dual threat quarterback like we're going to face this week.
Be a big one.
Jalen Milroe, I mean, this dude, he's ridiculous. He's got 17 rushing touchdowns. He's got 15 passing touchdowns. And defensively, it's going to be a tough night. Offensively,
even tougher.
We should just punt on first down. Just hope that our defense can get a pick six or something. I don't see. I mean, Alabama started playing really good. The later on the year it's gone. Alabama's trenches are, especially on their defensive side of the ball, trenches against our offensive side is just going to be dominant. We're going to have to be successful running the ball. We're going to have to run the rock. I mean, my goal is to just don't get blown out. Honestly, I mean that's my goal is let's not get blown out. Let's put some offensive points up and not get blown out.
Dalton, Brent made a bold statement about a Sooner commit this week. He mentioned that you're not committed if you're still visiting other schools. Just turn that around and take it away from sports and think about back when you were dating. You weren't committed if she was seeing other guys, right? You're a coach yourself, women's basketball coach. How do you handle situations like this with players?
I get it. I don't deal with NIL the way that he's dealing with NIL. And so that's where, again, man, the more we get into NIL, the more I start to agree with almost everything Zach Sanchez currently says, because I didn't used to. Zach Sanchez has some wild takes, but his takes are making a lot of sense right now with the NIL and the landscape of college football. It's not that way anymore. It's not. I mean, Dan Lanning was talking to a recruit who was there to see Ohio State, committed to Ohio State, and he's talking to this kid after they beat Ohio State. Like, the layout is different now. College football's changed completely, and I love that. I love that. You know what? We're Oklahoma. If you commit to us, you don't go see anyone else, and we don't want you if you're committed elsewhere. Yes, we do. Especially if you're an O-lineman. Good grief, we want you. So it's driving me insane. Get on board with the landscape of college football, or else we will die. We will die. Oklahoma football will not recover. Oklahoma football will not recover if we don't get on board with the current NIL.
Yep.
Pay people.
Yep.
Stop using the term commitment. It's not. Uncle Brandon said it. Contract.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And that's what it is. Until you sign your NIL deal. Well, I don't even care if it happens, but at the end of the day, it's already happened. You sign your NIL deal. All right, you're going to go to that team at least for a year. At least for a year. You're not going to sign in Norman for $2 million and then give up before you have a chance to see any of that money. So at least you're there for a year. And so you need to get the best players you can. If they haven't signed an NIL deal anywhere else, they are still ready. Like, commitments don't mean anything. letter of intents don't mean anything. It's the NIL deals
Completely.
that they sign. 100%. It's what, so I wish it was that way. I wish that it was all pride in the University of Oklahoma. We're a blue blood. This is who we are. We win Big 12 championships. Guess what? We're not in the Big 12 anymore.
Right.
We are going to be bottom of the pack in the SEC for a while if we don't change things now. I just disagree with that take 100%. I really do. And it's nothing against, like, I really hope that we've all said it. Brent Venables had changed our defense. It's going to come down to this OC hire, which maybe we won't talk about here. But again, it's just like, get on board with where the landscape's going. You're in the SEC. If you were in the Big 12, maybe we would want to say, yeah, we're Oklahoma. We're still going to dominate Big 12 recruitment. We will not dominate SEC recruitment just by saying we're the University of Oklahoma.
No, especially playing like we are right now. And you mentioned it. You mentioned it, Dalton. Brandon, I want to ask you this question. It feels like the OC talk this week has really heated up in and around Norman. You're closer to that city and the talk around there than either me or Dalton. Does it feel like they're starting to dial in and really narrow in on somebody to hire for this OC position?
It does. It feels like they're really narrowing in on Ben Arbuckle at Washington State. I think Brent basically came out and said, it may have been Monday night in their OU coaches show, whatever they do at Rudy's in Norman.
Barbecue.
But yeah, I think he really wanted Dan Mullen, and I don't think Dan Mullen's coming. I think he's kind of told him no, is the feeling that everybody around here has. So they're looking at Dan Arbuckle.
Where's Dan?
He's on like the
anywhere.
CBS. Yeah, he's on like the CBS sports desk for college football right now.
Oh wow.
So he's not even coaching right now.
Yeah.
Can I interject real quick on your comment?
Yeah, please.
Did you see Brent when they asked him about it? He said, I actually called Dan Mullen last year after Lebby left.
Lebby.
Oh, interesting.
Did anybody else just like slap their head like, hold up, you wanted Dan Mullen, for whatever reason you didn't get him, and you settled with Seth Luttrell?
Seth Luttrell.
How did you go from we wanted this guy who we believe is good? Like, I don't know. I was just
Right.
wait, what? I'm sorry.
Is it just
What did you
just not
say?
enough money? Do you think? Is it just, or is it something
There's
private?
talk that he's up for some head coaching jobs.
I don't think that's it. I think Dan Mullen is probably going to end up being a head coach somewhere next year, and so I think that he is. And I don't know where, because that hasn't really come out. Nobody's really talked about where, but I can see Dan Mullen being a head coach next year, and he's just not ready to hop back into the assistant coach coordinator position.
And he's making good money at CBS right now too. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, I'm
doing all
sure
right.
he is. I'm sure he is. I don't think he's making enough money as he would as a head coach at a Power 5 blue blood or anything like that. But he's making plenty of money to live, and he's had plenty of coaching jobs before. And if he's played his cards right, he's got plenty of money in the bank. So I think right now what they're looking for, and I said this in our Brain Trust text string, I think right now what they're looking for, and I don't know that I like this because I feel like this is settling for a short amount of time. I feel like they're looking for an OC that's going to bring a quarterback with them, whether that be, what's the Tulane's or the Tulane OC name? I cannot think of his name right now, but Darian Mensah at Tulane, who we played this year. Heck of a quarterback, I think. Joe Craddock, under the right tutelage and stuff, be great. Washington State with Ben Arbuckle kind of sounds like his quarterback may be willing to come. I just don't feel like they're looking for the best offensive coordinator. I feel like they're looking for the best offensive coordinator that has some luggage that he can bring with him. I don't feel like that's the right decision. I'm not saying that either one of those guys might not be, the next Lincoln Riley or the next, unbelievable offensive coordinator as a young guy that's given a chance. They both very well could be, but I feel like there's conditions on who they're going to hire, and I don't like that.
It's interesting, and it's because it's only going to heat up over the next couple of weeks, and because it has to be done, I would think relatively quickly for recruiting purposes, right?
It does, because the early signing period is like a week after the conference championship games. It's that next week, I believe.
Wow.
And
before Christmas,
yeah. And so I really feel like they're trying to get something done that they can announce for those recruits that have already committed. Like,
Sure.
I know we don't like that word, and I think it's all a bunch of hogwash, but all of those kids that have committed, we're trying to say, look, this is the kind of offense you're going to be in.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to run. And so I really think they're trying to have something done before our last game and maybe announce it like the Sunday after Thanksgiving, after the LSU game, just so we can go out to these recruits and say, hey, look, here's what we're bringing in. This is where you're going to be in this high-powered offense. You know, you're going to be on the ground floor of starting something really good and really new at the university. And
No doubt.
they have to get something done fast. So they can't let this go past, the second or third week in December and not have a coach named, or we're going to be, 0 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Well, hopefully we have a chance to talk about somebody super solid before Thanksgiving on next week's show. So looking forward to that, and hopefully, I did something back to recruits and players. I saw something from Urban Meyer this week. He said back when he was coaching college football that he goes, you couldn't turn around and not trip over a play. What did he say? A skill player. He's like, now you can't even buy a lineman. They don't even. It's like they stop manufacturing them. Yeah, that's going to be super important, especially for Oklahoma moving into the 2025 season. Any last words for the game this weekend in prime time, national television, ABC, Oklahoma and Alabama?
Dalton, what do you think is going to happen?
Alabama will cover.
Okay. The end. I got it. B, what
3
about
words.
you?
Alabama will cover.
Let's get that hashtag trending. Let's go. Okay.
Right. Hashtag Alabama covers. I don't disagree. I just don't want to get blown out. I don't feel like I don't have enough confidence in anything to do with our offense to say that whoever is at quarterback, and it's going to start being Jackson Arnold, but whoever is at quarterback is going to be able to have any kind of time to make a decision.
Throw Casey Thompson in there.
Why not?
They're not going to. Casey Thompson's not touching the field.
I'm just over it. Like, Jackson's not good. He's not.
It's not.
He dropped the ball twice last week without anybody touching.
Alabama beat this Missouri team 34-0. I have no, it's going to be brutal.
Well,
I'll be there in my OU shirt.
You will? You'll be there?
I'll just be, unfortunately, I actually really wanted to go to this game, but we'll be in Iowa. Dad's going, and I think Mom's going too, but it's just like, this is what you want. You go to the SEC to play in these games, and here we are, like, there's not even a chance. Like, I got nothing good to say. I don't even think our defense will keep us in this game.
No, I don't either. Like I said, this is the first dual threat, like real dual threat quarterback that we've played all year.
Well, and the first time we get them into third and anything, we're just going to drop everybody back and not put any pressure. So Milroe is just going to run.
Yep. Drop 8, rush 3, and Milroe's going to have all day to run the ball.
10 plus yards every time.
I hope to hell they prove me wrong, but
that'd be nice. I like that.
I've hoped
Are
that
you holding
already
your breath,
for.
It would be fun for us to be able to get through.
I've hoped that already for every other game we played too.
It'd be fun for us to get through a group chat, like all the way into the fourth quarter. Like, holy crap!
Yep,
we're gonna win this game.
This is crazy.
I'd be cool with that getting out of the first quarter. Not even into the fourth quarter.
Very true. We got some other games to pick besides Oklahoma and Alabama. So first, let's look back at last week. B, you didn't get one right last week. Is this 2 weeks in a row?
No. Is it 2 or 3 weeks, Dalton?
It's 2 weeks in a row now. It's about to be 3.
Oh, it's about to be 3. Okay. Look, the trash talk started already. Dalton, you got 1, but you're still behind. I mean, I think
all right.
what is
Plenty
right.
football.
Right.
Brandon,
Talk all the trash you want. You're still losing.
Brandon, you're up by 3, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this week, Dalton, you start the picks. Let's get your first one. What do you got here, man?
Yeah, I'm going to go with UNLV rounding up the top 25 this week. They play San Diego State, I believe it is, or San Jose State. They're a good football team. They've got a good
state team. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not one that I expect them to lose to. I don't think they're in the hunt anymore for the playoff necessarily, but for them going to a big bowl game is still a really big deal. Get your university a lot of money, gets the football program a lot of money. So they're still obviously trying to get to one of those quote unquote BCS bowls. What do you even call them anymore? I don't even know. New Year's 6 bowls, I guess, but those are now part of the playoffs. So I don't even know what they're fighting for, but UNLV's
one
been
of
a
the
good
72 bowl games is what they're fighting.
There we go. Yep. But yeah, 7.5, they can cover that. So give me UNLV to start the week off, minus 7.5.
Pick one for you, B.
Pick one for me. I'm going to Ole Miss versus Florida. I know Florida came off a big win last week. They got DJ Lagway back and just beat LSU. I mean, just 27-16. Beat them by a solid 2 scores. Ole Miss's last game, they beat Georgia at home, who, I said earlier I would put Georgia way up above some of the other SEC teams just because of their strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule has been brutal. But Ole Miss only being favored by 10.5. I think Florida gave everything they had last week against LSU, and I don't feel like LSU has really come out and shown much these past, 4 or 5 weeks. I'm going to take Ole Miss minus the 10.5 on the road at Florida against DJ Lagway and that team. I think Jackson Dart, Trey Harris, Paris Jr. are going to go in there. They're going to score a bunch of points against this Florida defense, and I don't think Florida is going to be able to put that much points up to cover the 10.5 at least. I mean, I could see this game being a 42-27, 42-28 type of game. I think Ole Miss is going to cover the 10.5 at Florida.
Okay, Dalton, pick 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the SEC or the ACC. Sorry, the team that none of us thought would be winning the ACC right now, but here we are. SMU undefeated in conference play, and they've got Virginia this week. Like, Jennings is throwing for over 2,000 yards. He's got 15 touchdowns on the season. They're averaging 40 points per game as an offense, and Virginia is somewhere in the bottom half of this conference. I think that SMU is just going to score too many points. They know what's at stake. They're actually in this playoff hunt. Even again, we had this conversation earlier. Maybe they're not a top 12 football team. However, they win their conference, they're getting a bye. That's the way it's set up, and they've got to continue to do that. So they know what they're playing for right now. There's a lot of stake for SMU. They're not going to slip up against a team in Virginia. Give me SMU to cover that 9.5 points.
All right. Pick 2 for you, B.
Pick 2 for me. I'm staying in the SEC. Got a quarterback that came back last week. Looks healthy against South Carolina with Missouri. Brady Cook. When he plays, they're pretty dang good. They lost in a shootout against South Carolina last week. South Carolina's defense is tougher than I gave them credit for most of the year. But Missouri's only favored by 7.5 at Mississippi State. Mississippi State's 2-8 on the year. They're 0-6 in conference. I don't think there's any chance Missouri goes in there and wins by less than a couple of touchdowns. You got Brady Cook. You got Theo Weiss Jr., former OU wide receiver, who is their leading receiver with 637 yards, only 3 touchdowns on the year. I don't think there's any chance that this is a failed pick. I think Missouri covers this 7.5 points at Mississippi State with no problem.
All right. Time for Master Locks. Dalton, what's yours?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the SEC as well, and I'm gonna go to this Kentucky and Texas game. Look, we've said it all year long. We've pointed it out multiple times today. Texas, are they really this good? And we even made the comment they could easily drop one of these last two games. Now, I'm not saying Kentucky's gonna win. The spread is 20.5 to Texas, but Kentucky, their schedule has not been easy, and they still have wins over Ole Miss. They've got, they played Georgia to 1 point. They played Tennessee really tight. Tennessee scored late in that game. I think that Kentucky is going to give Texas a game here. 20.5 is a big spread to me. And if Texas wins that, and then they prove it, sure. But I think Kentucky can keep this a game for 4 quarters, and it would really do me a solid if they would just go ahead and win it outright. So I'm going to take Kentucky plus 20.5 over Texas, win it, get me the double points. Appreciate you, Stoops.
All right, double points, master lock for you, B. What do you got?
I'm not going for double points. I'm going to the Big 12. I am going to Lawrence, Kansas, where the 8-2, 6-1 in conference Colorado Buffaloes come into Kansas. I know Kansas coming off a big win last week at BYU, giving them that loss. I think Colorado's offense is just going to be too powerful for Kansas's defense to hold down. I have not bought into the Colorado train. But the Big 12 sucks. I mean, I don't think they're any good. I think the bottom 5 in the SEC and the Big 10, I think any of those guys could be, one-loss teams in the Big 12. I just don't think the Big 12 is any good. I think Colorado goes in and covers. It's 2.5 at Kansas. They have to win by a field goal. Got Shedeur Sanders, got Travis Hunter. I mean, Colorado's offense is going to be too powerful for Kansas. I know Kansas beat BYU last week, but BYU's offense has not been as powerful and has not been as solid as of late. I just don't think there's any chance Kansas wins this game. So I'm going to bank that Colorado wins by more than 3. I'm going to take Colorado minus 2.5 on the road at Kansas.
I really like that pick, but I think it's hilarious because you started it out the same way I started it out, with the exact same spread, because last week I had BYU in Kansas. And I started out talking about, I know Kansas is coming off a big win because they just upset Iowa State the week before. And then sure enough, Kansas goes in and beats BYU. So it would be awesome if Kansas upsets Colorado again and just completely knocks Colorado out of the playoff talk in general, because right now they still have a chance to win the dang Big 12.
Every week.
I wouldn't hate that just because I'm not a big Colorado fan. Obviously, everybody that watches this knows, but I just don't see it.
I'm with you. It would be a shock if Kansas can do it 3 weeks in a row.
Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado. Mm-hmm. That would be crazy.
It'd be huge. Every week that the Raiders lose a game, Shedeur tweets, it's either thank God or praise God. One of the two. Like, that's where he's going to be going next year. But I know you're going to love that. I heard Colin Coward, I believe it was this week, say that it's very likely, and it's funny because we've talked about this too, but he said that it's very likely Dallas will get the first pick in the draft. And if that happens, Shedeur is going to be the first pick, and the brand new coach will be Sanders.
Did I say that last week in our podcast?
You did.
I don't remember if it was the podcast or our talk. Our talk
Maybe.
Before or after, but yeah.
Maybe.
It has been stated for sure.
You definitely said it, yeah.
Yep.
I definitely said it, and I saw a video with Michael Irvin on some podcast today. And have you seen that?
No.
Where somebody asked him if the Dallas Cowboys draft Shedeur Sanders, do you think Dion will be the next head coach? And he goes, I have it from a good source. There's a really good chance of that happening, but I'm not saying who that source is. I was like, yeah, that fool talked to Dion, and they're actually considering it.
Or he was talking to Jerry at the Tyson fight when Jerry's mic was turned off by Netflix. So it could have been that too.
I mean, nobody heard anything about that because Netflix sucked that night. But
it's terrible, dude. Terrible.
So bad.
Yeah,
guys, it's been fun. Hey, all you guys out there, if you're just listening, if you're watching, whatever you're doing, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. As Ant always says, it doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us out a lot.
And
it
do
helps
this
us
too.
out a lot.
It's easy to share with a friend too. So we haven't asked for that. Just hit the share button and send it to somebody in your contact list.
Yeah, absolutely. But once you do that, you have to learn what they say, right?
The weekend is good,
but the midweek is always better.
And boom goes the dynamite.